What I've been asked to talk about today is about anxiety. Is this something that you come across in your... Sorry, you didn't know there was going to be audience participation, did you? There is. Anxiety in your children, hands up? Yeah, a general kind of thing, yeah, absolutely. And so my kind of premise for today, I suppose, is this, but please ignore the extra with, because I've put a typo in there. My premise for this talk today really is that it is entirely expected that people on the autistic spectrum will be anxious. It's not an accident, it's not a coincidence, it's not just a kind of random thing that happens. It's actually a core part of the experience of life on the autistic spectrum. And in order to kind of illustrate that, I'll talk a little bit about myself and talk a little bit about other people that I've kind of met and worked with and all of those kind of things. I just wanted to say this morning, everyone was in Rita's talk this morning? Yeah, and she was saying that people with autism didn't like Christmas. I love Christmas. So I don't have to leave the house. And it's... Yes, thank you, Rita. There you are. For me, I love Christmas because I don't have to leave the house. And the house is my absolute favourite place to be in all parts of the world. Leaving the house makes me anxious. Just walking out of the front door. It's also the only time of year. One of my fanatical special interests is cooking. And it is the only time of year where I don't look weird, because I can make 5 flavours of ice cream and nobody thinks that's unusual at Christmas. The rest of the year, they all think that's a little bit strange. But Christmas is my special time of the year to be able to do all of those kind of things without looking peculiar. Apart from all the bloody people that keep coming round and bugging me, Christmas would be absolutely perfect for me, not a problem at all. So talking about anxiety, is anyone here anxious now? I mean, this is not therapy or anything. I really have no way the empathy to deal with all of that. But anybody feeling particularly anxious or worried now? Why not? Why aren't you anxious? You should be. You don't know where you are. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who I am. You don't know what I'm going to ask you to do. There's so much uncertainty in your lives generally. You might not know exactly how you're going to get home. You might not know what you're going to have for your tea. But none of you are anxious. Why is that? That's my kind of question for you, I suppose. For me, right now, I am less anxious than I've been ever since the moment I woke up this morning. I've been here all day, I've been wandering around. I know that some of you are only here because you're hoping to get on the telly. This is the time of the day that I'm actually been least anxious. Anybody got any thoughts about why that would be? Structure? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I've been here all day, so that's kind of easier, yeah. Absolutely. I'm here to do what I'm doing what I came to do. The rest of the day has just been a load of sort of hanging around and stuff, yeah. Absolutely. This is not reciprocal. This is not social. You have to listen to me. It's my turn now. My subject, my script, my agenda. This is not a friendship. This is not a two-way conversation. I can say all sorts of things up here that you will forgive me for because I am here. If I were to have a conversation with you and I were to say something accidentally offensive, you wouldn't forgive me because you'd think that I did it on purpose or it will be kind of accidental. So me talking to you in the foyer, in the break, is terrifying. Me talking to all of you at once now, it's not terrifying at all. There's almost too many of you for me to worry about, so I don't worry about any of you. So, often people kind of say, well, how could you do that? How could you stand up? But actually, I am more equipped to stand up and talk than you are, potentially, because I don't care what you think about me. That's not true. I do care what you think about me. I just haven't got a clue what you think about me. And therefore, that kind of liberates me from all of the panic that some of you might have about the idea of talking up here. Oh, what will they think of me? What if I make a fool of myself? Oh my God, all of that kind of stuff. None of that enters my head. The only thing I worry about is forgetting what I'm going to say, because I've got a terrible memory, and failing myself, so that I feel that I've done a bad job. I'm more concerned with my sense of failure, and this is something I'm sure you'll recognise in a lot of your children, this sense of perfection, is not wanting to make a mistake, causing kind of anxiety. I'm more concerned with my standards than I am with yours. Sorry, but that's just kind of the way it goes. So I think sometimes it is this topsy-turvy world for people with autism. The things that you might think are fun, other children think are fun. Parties, Christmas nativity plays. These things are hellish for a lot of the kids in some of your schools, aren't they? They are just the worst case scenario for them whatsoever. I was watching my grandson's play the other day. I know I don't look old enough. And I was just thinking what an enormously empathic female, and this is something that Rita said this morning, a very female-orientated thing. They're singing, they're dancing, they're holding hands, they're dressing up. All of these kind of things are very much a kind of a female agenda to a degree. And even I'm a woman, but that sort of thing is horror to me. That kind of forced participation, absolutely horrible. And yet other children obviously find this fabulous, absolutely wonderfully enjoyable time of the year. So it's really about having to kind of make that switch and not making the assumption that what some children think is great, that somebody else might think is absolutely, properly hellish, really, really an unpleasant kind of situation to be in. So why aren't you anxious in this situation? This is a thought of mine as to why that may not... Oh, no, didn't work. is the case. I am going to have to go up here. I didn't want to, but I can't actually see what I've written up there. So the reason that you're not anxious, if we think about anxiety itself anyway, anxiety really is the feeling that you're probably not going to be able to cope with something that is about to happen, something in the future. They often say that depression is about past worries and anxiety is about future worries. So anxiety is about, I can't handle it, I can't cope, either in the next 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 years. It's about something that's going to happen in the future. So the reason that you're not anxious today, and probably in lots of times in your lives, is that you know how you feel. You can understand how you feel. You can feel those sensations. You can name them. You can share them with somebody in a reasonably socially appropriate way. You can say, I'm sorry, I'm not really comfortable here. I think I might have to leave. Something that our children and adults with autism find very difficult to do. Even naming the emotion. You often say to people with autism, how do you feel? And they say, I don't know. And they don't know. They genuinely don't know. The feelings are all there, but it's what you do with them. How do you name them? How do you get them out? That's the problem. How do I share them without running, screaming from the room and being seen as challenging just because I don't have that particular kind of facet? Putting things in perspective, that helps you when to feel anxious. You kind of look around you, you might think, well, actually, nobody else is looking anxious. Other people are coping. I can read them. I can read their body language. I can see them. Everybody else seems okay, so probably I should be okay too. You're probably not even conscious of doing some of these things, but your ability to keep yourself feeling safe by using all of these kind of skills is what makes you okay in a situation where somebody else may not be okay. Understanding what's going on, understanding the language that's been used, understanding the tasks that's been set you as a child, understanding the sense of the whole occasion, thinking about what the consequences might be. How bad can it be? If you were to think about today, you'd probably kind of think, well, I've never been here before, I've never seen this person before, but I've been to a training session before, so it's probably a bit like that. So you're generalising, you're able to put those sort of concepts out there in order to protect yourself from any kind of feelings of anxiety. The other things that you're good at, a few more things, that knowing that whatever happens, you can probably handle it. These are all the core skills that you just have absolutely easily. Being able to accurately guess what's going to happen next. And I put the word accurately in there because what we're seeing increasingly with this sort of more understanding of differences between boys and girls, men and women with autism, is that sometimes the women have quite a good imagination, that the boys sometimes don't. They can't imagine anything, so they just don't do anything at all, nothing. No. World at a distance, no. The girls, and I'm very much fit into this characteristic myself, I can sort of imagine everything. So my fears are enormous. If I were to think about the possibilities of a certain situation, I can think of everything from the good stuff to the fact that I get chopped up and left in a ditch. My problem is that I might attend to the possibility of being chopped up and left in a ditch more than I might attend to the more likely consequences. So it might be that I decide not to go for a walk in the countryside because I think I'm going to get chopped up and left in a ditch, where the chances are probably the worst thing that will happen is I'll get muddy feet. Something like that. Does that make sense? So what we see is this kind of quite a broad span of consequences and imaginations in some individuals with autism. So it's not just none. It might be too many and not very accurately defined. We see in girls particularly, again, things like, very fantasy kind of world, finding it difficult to separate fact and fantasy and those kind of things. And that's something that I experience a great deal of. I'm very frightened of things that will probably never, ever, ever happen to me. But I'm so frightened of them that it will stop me doing them. Even though I know they're very unlikely, the fact that there is that tiny, tiny possibility of it happening is too much for me, and I won't do it. So there's a kind of mixture within this sort of abstract imagination kind of thing. But for you, you're able to kind of accurately generalise the situation, make any mental leaps over any gaps in information that you've got. These are all the things that kind of keep you safe. You also know that if it does go wrong, you can think of probably quite an effective, efficient strategy to sort it out. Your strategy won't be to punch the person next to you and run out of the room. Your strategy won't be to give up your job and never go out the house again. Your strategy will be moderate. It will be a gentle kind of thing. I often think about people on the autistic spectrum as having a toolbox. In fact, all of us have a toolbox. But people on the autistic spectrum, their toolbox doesn't have much in it. It doesn't have the fine-tuned little tools that just tweak a situation generally. When a person with autism opens their toolbox, they either find nothing at all, no strategy, no idea how to solve this situation, or they find a hammer and will use a hammer to deal with everything. And that's often the way that some people kind of deal with things. So it's not the tweaks, it's the, no, can't do it, I'm leaving! It's the hammer all of the time. And socially, it's often the hammer as well. It's not the subtle compliment, it's not the subtle lie, the white lie, all of that kind of thing. It's the hammer. Yes, you look fat! Don't ask me again. That's it. A much more kind of extreme version of a gentle, subtle response that perhaps other people have. Knowing that your chosen strategy isn't going to cause you future problems, this is massively important. If somebody comes to your door and you don't feel like talking to them, you don't slam the door in their face and swear at them, because that person might be your boss. And if you slam the door in front of your boss, you might get sacked. And if you get sacked, you might not be able to pay your mortgage, and you'll become homeless. This is all abstract imagination. This is all consequences. So your behaviour today, subconsciously, is always considering these multivaried kind of possibilities. And again, a lot of people with autism are not very good at doing all of those kinds of things. So all of this stuff keeps you safe. And all of those things in brackets are the diagnostic criteria for autism. So the things that keep you safe are the things that people with autism either don't have or have in limited quantities, or have in less an intuitive way, something that person's actually got to learn mechanically. And again, that's something that Rita said this morning. It's not intuitive, it's mechanical. And therefore it's clunky, and therefore it's prone to failure, it's prone to mistakes. Things are likely to go wrong in that given kind of situation. So we should expect somebody should feel anxious. This beautiful piece of information here, you've got a slide of this because it's ridiculous. You have a copy of this in the back of behind my slides in the copy of your pack, so that you can see it a little bit more clearly. I would love to claim credit for this piece of work. Sadly, it's not mine, although I wish it was. I'm not sure if you can see very well. It's taken from a book called Cognitive Behavioural Therapy for Adults with Asperger's Syndrome by a woman called Valerie Gauss. For me, in a lot of the work that I do, I work with individuals, training, all sorts of things. It's a really nice little understanding, I hope, of autism and how it all kind of fits together. What we have at the top level is the cognitive processing. This is the thinking bit. The bit where you make sense of the world, the bit that says, I'm hot, the behaviour bit says, well, take your jumper off then. What my premise would be here is that sometimes we think autism is at level 2, which is behaviour. It's not. It's at level 1. It's at thinking. If I behave differently, it's because I've thought differently, that the information that I've processed, that I've understood, that I've taken in, has been different to the information that you have processed, so that my behaviour has turned out to be different. This works for everybody. We all think something, process it, feel it, sense it, whatever, and then we behave on the back of that. I don't believe people do things randomly. I think behaviour follows processing of some kind of sort. So at the top level, we've got these three areas, these gaps, I suppose. First one being processing information about other people, reading people, facial expressions, empathy, all of those kind of things, not picking up the correct information for the correct situation. The middle one on the top row is processing information about yourself, your own emotions, the sensory world, feeling overwhelmed, being able to manage that as your emotions kind of show, get up and down, all those sorts of things. The third one is processing information about non-social information. That's your abstract stuff, that's planning, that's knowing what's coming next, that's decision making, that's organising yourself. All of this is quite abstract. If you think about the school day, there is a huge amount which is unsaid and unspoken, unless you're in a special provision where you're using schedules and timetables and all of those kinds of things. But you can fill in those gaps, you do that well. You can guess, you can generalise, you can pick up all those kinds of things. The next layer down is the behavioural stuff. If you don't read people properly, if you've missed some signals from somebody waving at you, smiling at you, being upset, your behaviour might be that you completely ignore them. They may be crying and you may be waving at them beautifully. You may say, "You're all right," and they say, "I'm fine," and you say, "Jolly good," and off you go. You've missed some of the signals, your behaviour is different than expected as a result. The next level down is consequences. So if that's how you behave to people, eventually people don't like you very much. They're going to ignore you, they're going to bully you, they're going to reject you, they're going to think that you're not a very nice person. This is a very, very quick view of this. This is a much longer and more complicated thing. On the other side, we have processing problems, decision making. This might be somebody where they get a letter and they're too frightened to open the letter and they think, well, I'll just throw the letter away. Straight away, your problem's solved. It's gone. The letter's gone. Problem solved. Stress level down. Smashing. Sadly, that letter was from the benefits agency or the electricity board or something else, and the knock-on effect is that you end up in court, you end up evicted, you end up in debt, all of these kind of things. It's astonishing to me how many adults you would think that a person with autism would have quite a small and safe life. But a lot of independent autistic adults get themselves in all sorts of bother because they're trying to manage their stress on a very fight or flight basis. Get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it, without being able to see the consequences and without knowing that if I sort it out today, all the bad stuff won't happen kind of further along the line. All of the stuff about adults is relevant for your children, because if you can teach your children these skills now, they won't have the problems that adults like me have, who didn't get diagnosed until much, much later in their lives. So you can do something to change the outcomes of the children that you're working with so it doesn't end up having to be this way. So as we can see, if you think like that, you will behave like that, the world will treat you like this, and the outcome will be anxiety. It's natural for this person to be anxious. It's natural. Things will go wrong for this person because they're missing something at the cognitive level. And that's where I would say that we need to support people. The behaviour level is one thing, but actually the best thing to do is to try and help people to fill in the gaps at the cognitive level, to be able to understand what's going on out there in your world and be able to try and fill in some of those gaps a little bit. That's not trying to make people normal, that's not trying to take away who they are. It's like giving somebody an instruction manual. If you go to France, you buy a guidebook on France. If you live in your world, give these people a guidebook to your world. Because if you want them to be successful, if you want them to be independent, you need to know this stuff. You can't go into the workplace getting this stuff wrong without offending people, without getting stressed, without things going kind of wrong for you. And that's kind of where you're moving your young people into education, onto kind of the workplace. So it's a kind of knock-on effect, really. You think like that, you behave like that, that's how life treats you. You eventually will be fed up with it. You'll be frightened, you'll be scared, you'll be generally kind of fed up with all those kind of things. I think there's an extra one that comes down there, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, and I think that's physical health. That actually being anxious for a very long time causes you physical health problems. So some of the kids that you work with, you may see them having little bits and pieces which may actually run right the way back up to the autism. The anxiety is caused by the autism. You can't treat the anxiety, the autism remains. We've got to go right up the scale and treat people right towards the back. All right. The other thing, I think, just some general kind of thoughts about why these individuals find the world all just too much, is the sensory stuff. The world's just too unpredictable. People change their plans all the time. One day my friend liked me and then they didn't like me anymore. That's stressful. I don't know what I did wrong. How is that? I always have my blue cup for breakfast. Today my blue cup's not here. I don't know why that is. That's really stressful. What we're likely to see from all of this is what we call challenging behaviour sometimes, because the person cannot work out what the hell is going on. If you've ever been in a situation where you didn't know what the hell was going on, you were anxious, I'm sure. It's that feeling you're out of control, you don't know how to be, you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know how to solve it. This, I would argue, is how most people with autism feel, to a degree, every minute of their waking lives, particularly when they've left the house. Home is a kind of sanctuary. Bedroom is a kind of sanctuary. It's as soon as you step out into the world, which is full of people, that things start to go slightly awry, slightly wrong. An example is that there is one person in this world that thought this carpet was a good idea. Anybody else here been freaked out by this carpet all day? Thank you, madam, thank you, absolutely. I stayed here last night. There is a worse, I'm not sure if it's worse. Have you seen the one without the squirrelies that's got the little yellowy, browny kind of bits in it? I also suffer from vertigo, a type of vertigo that means if I turn my head too quickly, the world all starts kind of spinning around all over the place. You try that on that carpet. I think they thought I was pissed. I was kind of walking along the corridor, genuinely hanging on for dear life, because this carpet is physically wibbling around all over the place. I'm sure most of you know about this kind of sensory stuff, and I think there is a perception sometimes that actually, that it's an option, that it's kind of like, oh, they'll get used to it, you know, it's only a carpet, it's only a light, it's only a thing. But it's not. For some people, this visual stuff, if I were you, I would not have been able to sit in this room all day and listen and learn with that carpet. The amount of capacity it takes to deal with that visually and cognitively would stop me from being able to concentrate. I feel a bit sick. I've had to walk around the hotel like this so I can't see it. It's a massive thing. So, I mean, if you think about kids who are less able even to be aware of it, you might just be in a room and feel rubbish. As a 5 or 6-year-old, you may not know that that's because of the carpet or the lighting. So some of these things, it's massive. It's not a choice. It's not a fussiness. It's not being particular. It's as important as a wheelchair. You know, that's a strong statement, but it really is in terms of making something accessible to some of the people that we're with. And it makes you anxious. The carpet makes me anxious. It's a feeling of, oh, can't cope with it. It's a weird thing, but it's a genuine thing. Where are we? No idea. There we go. So these are all these kind of things. Environment, short-term memory, that's frustrating. That makes you anxious. It makes you worried because you know you're going to forget things. You know you're going to kind of get things wrong. Not being able to know what you need, that you're going to forget something. All of this kind of stuff, it all builds this whole kind of picture of somebody being kind of anxious. And feeling that you're failing all of the time. Feeling socially that you're going to fail a lot of the time. I've just started kickboxing classes. Thank you. I have the physique for it, surely. And I was, in the kickboxing classes, one of the worst bit is that you have to partner up with people. And it's quite a big room, it's like 20, 30 people. You have to go and find yourself a partner. I'm genuinely incapable of doing that at all. I lurk at the edge in an uncomfortable fashion. And the other week, I was approached by a 13-year-old boy, about this big. And kickboxing and martial arts are quite formal, so it's all sir and ma'am kind of stuff. And this 13-year-old boy came up to me and he said, "Ma'am," he said, "don't just stand there waiting for someone to come and be your partner. You have to get out there and find one." How do you tell a 13-year-old boy that you're a 45-year-old woman who cannot approach another person to do 10 minutes of kickboxing with them? It's embarrassing, it's shameful. But actually, that's the situation that you find yourself in on a constant kind of basis. And it doesn't go away. I think one of my big messages often is that we think that if we put all these strategies in for children, at some point they'll leave your school, they'll be sorted, it'll actually be fine. But it's not. And that's not a bad thing. And doesn't mean that you should stop. but actually this person will be autistic forever. And that they will learn different strategies for themselves, but actually you can start that process and help that person later on in their life. When they're 40, 50, 60, 70, they will still not be able to approach somebody in a kickboxing class. They will still find it very stressful when they forget everything. That stuff isn't going to go away. But the way they feel about themselves can change, and you can make a massive difference in those kinds of things, and that's a huge kind of thing. So the signs might not be visible. We have kids who don't make very many facial expressions. You might not be able to see some of this kind of stuff. You might not be able to see the difficulties. You might not be able to see the autism. You might not be able to see the struggles that these individuals are having. There again is some suggestion that again, it's a kind of boy-girl thing, that a lot of the girls are much better at hiding this stuff. And that the knock-on effect of that is greater mental health issues. Bigger problems than the boys. And my partner Keith also has Asperger's. I chose very well. He has no mental health problems at all because he does this to the whole world. You suggest anything to my partner Keith and he says no. Nope, nope, nope. And you have to convince him 100%, every single crack of detail has to be provided before he would say yes. You've got kids like that in your classes? Yeah, they will just say no, because no keeps you safe. No doesn't make you anxious. No means I stay where I am. I know where I am. I'm absolutely fine. Here I go. What seems to be the case, and I'm generalising here in terms of gender, that a lot of the girls, they say yes because they want to fit in. They don't want to stand out. They don't want to be different. But the more you fit in, the more you're bending. The more you're bending away from your natural self, and eventually the more that has some sort of potentially mental health kind of knock-on effect. So I'm going to show you, just as a personal kind of thing, I suppose. This is my world. I've got a caveat up here because I do not want any of you going away and diagnosing everyone with autism who happens to have any of these kinds of things. That's not what this is. This is a personal illustration. I just wanted you to see that being older, being clever, I was a gifted child, doesn't make this stuff go away. I have a lovely life. I have a good life. I'm very lucky. I'm a very fortunate kind of person. But actually, behind the scenes, as in some of your children, I don't want to frighten you either. All of this stuff's going on. That's my life. That's what happens to me all of the time. When I'm not standing here with you, I would be picking my fingers. I would be plucking hairs out of myself. I have an anxiety level which is probably at a 3 or a 4 every single minute of every single day. My chest is constantly tight. I am always frightened of something or nothing or whatever. That's just there all of the time. And possibly you find that a little bit hard to believe because I'm up here being gobby. This is my safe space, as I told you. That's real. And some of this stuff might be happening with some of your kids. So what I'm saying is if you've got these kids with autism, look out for some of these things. These are signs of anxiety. Do you have the nail biters? Do you have, kind of pickers? Do you have all of this kind of stuff? This is a sign, there might not be any others, that this is someone who's anxious, and they're anxious because of their autism. So don't tell them to stop picking their fingers. That might be the only thing that's getting through the day. We've got to deal with it from sort of top down, if you like, in that kind of thing. I want to mention this one at the bottom here, because that's scary. And this is something that I've come across with other people with autism, young people and older people, is people freak out about the idea of suicide. Yeah? Anybody work with young people who've talked about ending their lives? Yeah, a few of you, definitely. I'm not going to say that none of those people are suicidal, not in the slightest. What I have come across, and this is my experience, is that it's a sense, when you shut your computer lid and it just hibernates, that's what I want to happen. I want to be temporarily not existing. To me, there is some kind of qualitative difference between that and being suicidal. Yeah? Does that make sense? And other people I've spoken to have said the same thing. They just want it to stop for a little while. Just stop now. But it's not, and my understanding of general suicide is limited. It's not quite the same kind of thing. But I think that we freak out. If somebody says, I want to be dead, we freak out about that. Of course we do. It's a terrifying thing. But it may be that actually what the person's experience is it's just too much. Make it stop. I don't want to think, I don't want to hear, I don't want to be here, but it's not necessarily forever and ever and ever. It's just for a temporary kind of thing. And that's really normal for a lot of people. And I think part of that is about not being able to manage your emotions terribly well. So if my emotions feel overwhelming, I just want to be gone. There is no means, it's black and white. I'm either fine or just get me out of here. I just don't want to exist anymore. And that happens very, very quickly. I'm sure your kids have flash tempers. They go from being okay to not okay extraordinarily quickly. Yes? This is a commonly recognised kind of thing. We don't seem to be able to moderate or recognise the signals. It's a bang, can't cope, need to be out of here. A much more extreme kind of version of that. But for me, and I can't speak for everybody, obviously, it's not the same as actually wanting never to be here ever again. My partner always thought I was a hypochondriac because he has none of these problems at all because he lives in this ridiculously tiny world with no people in it, no change, no activities, nothing happens. He's never anxious, he's never worried because his world is tiny. When he was at school, he used to be. Now he's an adult, he doesn't have to conform to all of these kind of patterns. He lives his own life and it's tiny. So he thinks I'm mental, completely and utterly mental. But he's increasingly understanding that my much bigger life has this as a payback. As I mentioned earlier, there's also physical things that knock on this as well. And this has been a very recent thing for me because this hypochondria that my partner accuses me of is all of these niggly little health complaints. This is my life. I said I have vertigo, I have lots of problems with eyes and all these kinds of things. Random things, nothing majorly serious, but they're niggly, they're annoying. I'm always bugging and moaning about something or other. And I started doing some research, and what I discovered is that every single one of those things has some kind of either causal or exacerbating anxiety factor in it. So that they're not necessarily all just clear kind of health complaints. A load of other stuff that I've seen people with, colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, I'm sure most of you kind of know about, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. These are all things, and in balance, I don't know a single non-autistic person who has colitis. I'm currently working with 3 autistic people who have colitis. That's a pretty poor sample, I will admit, but it seems to be that there's certainly, the anxiety is not where it stops. If you're stressed for long enough, more will happen, and these will lead into kind of physical things. A lot of these are adult complaints. You're not going to see these in kids potentially, but there might be things. Nosebleeds. I had tons of nosebleeds as a child. I was looking at that. Nosebleeds are caused by raised blood pressure and anxiety as a causal factor. All of these little kind of bits and pieces. What I want you to notice is that possibly there are signs of anxiety that you're not seeing. That might be mental, might be anxiety, might be physical kind of outcomes and those kind of things. So, what's the point of all of this self-exclosure about all of my medical problems? Is there any doctors in the house? No? Bugger. Could be cured. Autism, as we know, for certain individuals can be quite invisible, hidden, masked, maybe manifesting as a mental health condition. And again, in the women category, it seems that the mental health conditions are often diagnosed earlier than the autism, particularly for adult women on the autistic spectrum. Anxiety may also be invisible. Nobody knows I pick my fingers. Nobody knows I do these things because I do them in private. When I come out here, I don't do those kind of things. And a lot of your kids will be learning to hide that kind of stuff because people tell them to stop it or because they know that it's not an acceptable kind of thing to do. It may manifest as some kind of physical condition. Any kind of stomach upsets, bowel conditions, sickness, all of this kind of stuff. These are all classic stress reactions. When you get stressed, you feel sick. When you get stressed, you need to go to the loo. It's exactly the same for this person, but it may end up turning into something much, much more serious in terms of a physical kind of health condition. We mustn't presume the extent of either the autism or the anxiety by the external presentation. You don't know what's going on inside. You don't know how much work this person's kind of doing. And they're not separate. Don't try to treat the anxiety by itself. The anxiety is just a symptom of the life that this person's leading. So if we go back to this kind of thing, as I said before, this is just a symptom of this. This is where the processing difficulties are. This is where the gaps are. So we need to try and fill in some of those gaps, or at least to understand that the gaps are real and that these are causing all of these knock-on effects for this person. You go in at behaviour level and try and help people in terms of their behaviour. If they don't get it at a cognitive level, it won't stick. They won't continue to do it. If you say hello to people when you walk into a room, they'll go, I have no idea why I'm doing that, so I won't bother. Won't stick because it has no meaning. The things that we do them because they have meaning. There is some benefit to you. There is some consequence that you understand and that you go along with to a great enough degree to make you stick at it. It's the same for everybody. It's absolutely no different for a person on the autistic spectrum. There's a lovely, you're all aware that the diagnostic criteria have changed in the DSM. Yep, there's a really nice little line which I'm quite happy with, which is nice. They didn't ask me, obviously. But it says, obviously it has to be present throughout life, but it may not manifest itself until social demand exceeds limited capacity. And I think this is a really crucial line, that the kids that you work with, they may go past you and nothing's bad's going on, past another, it might be junior, it might be secondary, it might be FE, it might be university, it might be having a baby, it might be getting a job, it might be leaving home. But that point of capacity might not be reached. And at the point of capacity, that's when the autism kind of shows itself sometimes for the first time, and particularly with individuals with no intellectual kind of disabilities. It might be really late. I did an assessment with somebody who was 81 the other day, who wanted to know whether he had Asperger's syndrome or not at 81. Actually, it was his wife that wanted to know, because she'd read an article about it a few years ago, and she phoned me up and she said, "Before I shuffle off this mortal coil, I want to know if I'm right." So this poor 81-year-old gentleman was dragged along to my house to find out whether he had Asperger's or not. She was right. So practical stuff we can do. Expect less on a bad day. This is all cumulative. This person will become overwhelmed on a cumulative level. If they've already not had their blue cup, if their cornflakes have run out, if their taxi driver has changed, by the time they get to you, they're probably at an 8 or 9 on the anxiety scale. Expect less, or find a way to get that scale back down again by time out, headphones, whatever it is that child particularly kind of needs. Make things explicit. The more certain the world is, the less anxious I feel, the less anxious most people with autism feel. It really makes a big difference. My day is completely and utterly scheduled from start to finish. I wake up about an hour before I get up and I think about exactly every single thing, and I run through every single important conversation that I'm likely to have all day. And all of those things allow me to function in a really good and high level. At the end of the day, I go home, have a migraine, and eat a lot of chocolate, which you shouldn't do if you have migraines because they make it worse. The bit in the middle is copable, but the bits on the side are extremely well managed and hidden in order to kind of deal with all those kind of things. Short sentences, allowing people to be successful. Let's not make this person a balanced human being. They will always be good at certain things and rubbish at other things. Let's let them be good at those things and find ways to get around these other things. That's what you did. All of the things you were terrible at school, I'm betting none of you do them for a job now. Why are we making this person be an all-rounder? They're not. They have a spiky profile. You know that. Good at certain things, avoid the things that you're less good at. What happens next? This is huge. You often get kids asking you, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we going to have next? When's lunch? Who's coming? Who's coming? This is them saying, please give me certainty. I don't have it. I need to have the information. I'm feeling anxious. It's reassurance. It might be highly irritating, but you may be able to stop some of that with a nice timetable or a schedule on the wall and sticking to it. There's no point having these kind of schedules if you're not actually going to stick to them and do something about it. Obviously, we know about sensory environments and all those kinds of things. In terms of, this is probably for slightly older children and certainly intellectually more able children. Trying to actually shift the cognitive understanding, shift that top level of kind of thinking, translating your world, telling people why they're getting it wrong and how they can get it right. There is no point in telling somebody that certain things are not appropriate and taking that out of the toolbox unless you put something better in the toolbox. Otherwise, next time, that hammer is going to come back out again. We have to replace the ineffective strategy with a better one, actively teaching. It's no good to say, don't say that, it's rude. What shall I say then? Give me something else to say. We've got to actively teach that kind of stuff. Teaching skills, teaching benefits, making the benefit very explicit. My partner will not do anything unless it is very clearly beneficial to him on his little set of scales, that what he's going to get out of it is better than all of the stress of the change. And you've got to do that for your kids. What is it that they want? What do they respond to? What do they like? What motivates them? Then they will change easily. It's when you've got that resistance, when there's uncertainty, you will get a no. Because if you don't know enough information, you ain't going to risk it. This is not somebody that can imagine those kind of things. Teaching the mechanics of anxiety with older people, with teenagers. I get them looking on the internet. We learn about the response. We learn about the physical response. We learn that everybody gets anxious. If you're a person who doesn't have any friends, nobody talks about anxiety. To actually know that this is normal, it's not just you, is a massively important thing. To know that when you want to expand your comfort zone, when you want to do something new, being anxious is perfectly acceptable. It's fine. We don't always have to be afraid of the anxiety. We can just go, oh yeah, I'm feeling a bit worried because it's new, but it'll go away again. So we're actually taking the fear out of it, talking about it, getting hold of it, actually kind of dealing with the thing in itself. That it's useful. It helps to protect you. It helps to warn you. It's only when it kind of gets out of control that it's a bit of a kind of problem. So as I said, this is about having to learn mechanically what other people kind of do intuitively. I've got to stop pretty much now, but I just wanted to show you one extra thing. Because I appreciate some of this looks a little bit kind of bleak. Does anyone know what that is? Sorry?
Cigarette end?
Cigarette end? No, scale's slightly wrong. Good guess. Anyone know what that is? It's a what? Yeah. It's a lamppost. It's a lamppost that's been knocked over. I drive past this lamppost on a fairly regular basis. And I'm kind of worried that, I give you this slightly bleak picture. I don't want you to think that life is bleak for your kids. It's great. It's interesting. Having autism's fab. It's really fascinating. So on the one hand, I was talking about imagination and feeling, that if I'm considering something, I consider all of these options. I consider being chopped in a ditch. I consider all of that kind of stuff. That's the kind of negative side of it, where you can frighten yourself by things that aren't really happening. The positive side, and I kind of mentioned this idea of finding it difficult to separate fact and fantasy, is that when I saw that, I thought it was a penguin. I didn't think it looked like a penguin. I thought it was a penguin. I thought that a penguin by the side of the road was possible in Brighton. Your world has got lampposts in it. Mine's got penguins. It's not all bad. It's much more interesting. Thank you very much for your time.